Good evening and welcome to Speaker's Corner UK channel. We've had a little bit of a break, but we are back tonight, myself and Stops, and as the title says, we're going to do a part review of this EFDawah stream that happened last week, I think it is. So welcome to all the viewers if you're joining us live, and welcome if you are watching this as a recording sometime later. Good evening, Stops. How are you, sir?
Okay, I'm doing fine. I just have a question to people in the chat. Is Rob's audio coming through okay? Because I hear it somehow compressed again. What about you?
Yeah, if you're listening, can you tell us, give me a 1 if my audio is clear to you, and a 2 if there's any distortion on my audio. I've restarted my computer and just checked a few things on our end, which is why we started shortly, a little bit later. So just a 1 if you can hear me clearly, and a 2 if there's any distortion in my audio. Might be on
Because
screen.
I can hear it going in and out for some reason, where sometimes it's good and then suddenly it goes like through a compressor. But if you can't hear it, if you're good to understand it, then we're fine.
Yeah, we're good there. Everybody's going that they can hear it. They're hearing me well, so must be on your end then that it's not coming through so clear. It might be your headset or something. I don't know. If you're still using Bluetooth. If it's good enough, then we'll go ahead. If not, and you need to restart, then I can regale people.
No, it's like it's going in and out. At the moment, it's fine.
All right. Cool. So thank you very much for the good audio, for the feedback there. Brilliant, everybody. So as I say, we're going to do part of this stream. This stream is an open stream that EFDawah did recently, and they invite sort of anybody on to basically talk about anything. And so we've chosen the particular part here where there's certain critique against Islam and the Quran in this particular case, because we're not particularly interested in the Christian versus Muslim per se, the back and forth between the Bible and the Quran. So we normally want to critique their defense of the Quran or Islam. And in this case, I think the person is a Christian, if I remember correctly anyway, and he's got some questions around certain verses. So if you've got it, unless you've got anything else, Stops, and Stops is going to share screen as well, and we're going to go into a little bit of detail, certainly on one part of this, which hopefully you will find valuable and educational when we get to that particular part. But unless you've got anything else, Stops, we'll get straight into it.
Well, I just want to mention this is one of those things which has been addressed over and over and over. And I'm not talking about addressing the Muslim apologist style where I'm just saying some random stuff, but this has been substantiated with facts. This has been substantiated with literature, with medical, whatever you want. It has been scientifically refuted. I don't know why they come up with this again and again. It's getting quite, childish, the way that they are sticking to this without being able to bring anything up. But anyway, we're going to do it again. We're going to listen to some of the things, and then what we're going to do is we're going to look at the Quran, what it says, compare it with reality, and then see how the two stack up against each other.
Hi, could you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes, sir.
We can hear you.
Hi to everybody on the panel.
Hello, Rob.
Hi there. Yeah, so I've got some questions regarding the Quran, etc. I don't know if Darren remembers me. I'm Rob from Speaker's Corner.
I remember you.
Yeah,
You're the guy
okay.
who was holding on to the King James
I
Bible.
remember you, Rob.
Yeah, we had a good debate regarding King James Version Bible, Freemasonry, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I saw The Sopranos, I thought of you. Go on.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So, just before we start, I mean, I always remember Quran 29:46, where it says that we can have a good debate, etc. If anybody wants to bring that
Just
verse
for
up,
1 second here, Stops, if you don't mind.
because I love that.
Okay, so nice soft start. To my ear, at least, this guy's ingratiating himself a little bit too much here. And you'll hear the Muslims actually say, you did the same thing in Speaker's Corner. So maybe it's just his style or whatever the case is, but he's trying to be nicey, all lovey-dovey with them. Great stuff. Yeah, 125 will probably work better. Stops, that'll get us through quicker. And so just be aware of that. I think he's just trying to over-ingratiate himself. Let's just get to the point. It's not like you're really going to have a nice, calm conversation. If you know any of these guys, you'll know that it's probably going to get heated, and there's going to be some back and forth that isn't necessarily as intellectual as you might want anyway. So no point in going down this route.
That verse in the Quran. Muslims sometimes say to me as a Christian, do you like anything about the Quran? That's one of the verses that I do like. So yeah, Quran 29:46. If you want to bring that up at all.
I can read it.
It's just regarding to have a good debate. Yeah, please. Yeah.
And do not argue with the people of the book unless gracefully, except those of them who act wrongly, and say, we believe in that which was revealed to us and what was revealed to you, and our God and your God is the one only, and to him we fully submit.
Yeah, like I say, that's one of the verses that I do like in the Quran. I must admit. Anyway,
which verse in what's your most hated verse in the Quran?
Well, I'm just coming on to some questions, Hamza, and you might it might kind of give away or answer your question there. So the first verse that absolutely baffles me in the Quran is 86, 7-8. If you could pull those two ayahs up.
86, 7-8.
86, 7 and 8.
Stops. Have you paused it?
I have paused it and forgot to unmute myself. It's so nice that they're talking about embryology, they're talking about biology, they're talking about science, and this guy comes and says, I hope I touch the black stone. Isn't that ironic? My goodness.
I mean, it says here, of course, let's just use Yusuf Ali, proceeding from between the backbone and the ribs, surely Allah is able to bring him back to life. That's 86.7 and 86.8. There you go, you've got it on screen there.
So we're talking about the blue section.
Yeah, so that's the blue section.
So the blue section is, so let man observe from what he was created from a fluid, ejected, emerging from between the backbone and the ribs. This is what they're talking about, okay?
The surah and ayahs.
Rob. Are you serious? Have you really?
Yeah,
no, Rob. You've seen.
No. I know what you're, Darren. I know what you're thinking, and I'm actually going to elaborate on this a little bit further.
Rob, let me just say something first of all, and then you can elaborate as much as you like. Have you come on to this stream of EFDawah, knowing all the videos within Speaker's Corner, knowing how many times we responded to this, right? How much stores responded to this, and everyone responded to this? Have you come on to say that the Quran says sperm comes from the backbone?
No, but
you see, this is what happens so frequently. People get misrepresented as soon as they get here. He didn't say anything of the sort. He said something completely different. And yet this is what they are narrowing it down to make him look ridiculous. Now, the second thing is something that I've just addressed in a video where they say, we have responded. Yeah, but you haven't responded in a way that is sane. It is insane what you are saying. So if I come and say, how much is 2 and 2? And you say, well, it's 5. Well, then you have responded. You've given me an answer. But is the response, is this answer worth anything? Is it valid? Is it correct? No, it is not. So it doesn't matter whether you say I've responded or answered. You have not given a real, correct, valid response. And that is
exactly right, Stops. I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? The fact that somebody has said something isn't necessarily either a valid or indeed a sound response to something. And this is, again, poisoning the well. Are you really coming on here to do that? Listen to the tonality as well, right? So this is the classic poisoning of the well. I mean, it's like, I can't believe you're coming on here to talk about flat earth. That's the sort of like incredulous question that's being asked here, right? And he's trying to say, well, I'm kind of talking about that, but I want to elaborate. I want to actually talk about something else in relation to that. That's what he's going to try and articulate here. But he's not given the chance. It's kept going back to this. And he says, well, yeah, but kind of I want to talk about this, right? So he's not articulating himself very clearly here, which is one thing. But this whole line of questioning, instead of just allowing it to be the case, then they are just trying to stop him here at the beginning. This is the same sort of thing that hijab does, right? I can't believe that people are doing this. This is weak. He hasn't even responded to it yet, right? Hoping that his gullible audience, the hypnotic audience, will already switch off to anything the person has got to say. So this is a tactic. This is just psychology at play here, and Hamza's incredulousness isn't going to stop us, and indeed doesn't stop Rob here either. But it certainly does give the others all a chance to giggle around there, except the Nazim guy. He sort of just listens quietly mostly to all of this. He might actually be an interesting guy to talk to, the guy in the bottom left corner, because he doesn't actually say much here. Maybe Sadat as well, but you can see the smirk on the other guy's face, as if, we've dealt with this. Why could you possibly come back on this?
And just to make this a little bit constructive criticism, Rob MTT, it is always better to ask the question and let the Muslim go and make the argument, make the claim. Let them do it. Don't you go and say, this is what the Quran says. Ask the question, what does the Quran say? And then you can address it. Because the other way around, they've always got this wiggle room, because they are now going to go and say, well, that's not what the Quran actually says. So you need to let them say what the Quran says, because then they can't use it anymore. And that is the point.
I'm going to elaborate on it, because
You're not going to say that.
No, there's several questions,
on,
3 or 4. But yeah,
Rob, 1 second, Rob. Have you come on to make that point?
not specifically just about that. No.
No. That wasn't the question. Have you come on to make that point that the Quran talks about sperm coming from the backbone?
No, but if I can elaborate, then I can ask a deeper question about that.
So you actually have come on to talk about that then?
Well, it's regarding the tafsir.
No, forget that.
Jalalain.
Forget the Jalalain. Forget that. I'm saying to you this: have you come on to talk about this verse? Because if I remember correctly, Rob, I'm going to be straight with you. I remember how your sincerity was stripped and peeled away throughout that whole discussion last time. You started off so innocent, and slowly we unpicked you. Slowly but surely we unpicked you. So I'm just going to repeat again.
Hamza, that's why I brought up
again here.
Quran 20.
Just briefly, it's hard to listen to this and not want to respond, right? The disingenuousness and the this poisoning of the well that's going on here is just beyond belief, right? If you're going to have a panel, whether you've spoken to somebody before, if you're going to let him on, and you've had a conversation, there might be, with Stops and I, there might be people we won't let on because we just know how terrible their particular Muslim response is. So we're not going to let them on. But if you let somebody on here and then you start with this poisoning of the well, this just makes you look so disingenuous, makes you look weak. Rather just don't say anything at all. Leave it to somebody else to respond. Because if this is the best you can do, Hamza, this is a very poor showing straight away.
2946.
Rob. I'm saying again to you. Have you come on to challenge saying the Quran is making the claim that sperm comes from the backbone? That's all I'm asking. If you say no, carry on.
He did.
Yeah,
I want to actually elaborate on the point.
So you do want to talk about that?
That's one of the questions.
No, he doesn't. You see, this is the problem when people tell others what it says, and then they get misrepresented, and then they actually agree that they said something which they didn't say. And
one of the things you can do here is just continue to ask the question, just ignore it, right, and continue on, because otherwise you find yourself answering something that you don't actually want to say, and exactly. Like I say, he's not articulating himself as clearly as he perhaps could have here. So just ignore the question. I'm going to talk about this. I've given you the verses that I want to talk about. Are you open to talk about this, or are you going to keep going? You're going to keep badgering here and not respond to this, because it just looks weak from your side. So you could actually turn it around that way as well. Just tell me if you don't want to talk about this, Hamza. If you guys felt like you've dealt with it and you don't want to talk about this and you'd rather not have me on the panel and not let your viewers hear this, then fine. Just say that, Hamza. Is that what you're saying? Right? Just turn it back on him. That's another way you could do it.
But okay. So the actual question relates to the tafsir of that verse, or those verses. And it would be, I think there's Jalalain, I think there's Ibn Kathir.
Now, again, a much better way would be, if I look at the sentences X, Y, Z, and I want to understand how the people at the time understood those sentences, I have to go to the tafsir of that time of 300-400 years later. And this is what represents the understanding that the people had. Now, for example, here is one of them, and this is what it says, blah, blah, blah. Then you go. But to go and say, well, I want to talk about Tafsir al-Jalalain doesn't really make sense, because you're opening yourself up to like needless criticism, because they're going to say, well, why did you pick Jalalain? Why didn't you take somebody else? If you say, okay, Ibn Kathir, Jalalain, only 2 of them. Why? Why didn't you take all the others too? Don't do that. Don't do them. How can we understand the sentence? How did the people at the time understand the sentence? Can you tell me that? Then you go there. But don't start with this and already giving them the text, because they are simply going to reject the text. So don't do it.
And that actually mentions a fluid which comes from a woman's chest area.
Okay, I don't know why he does this, all right? We've just seen that this is not what the Quran says. It doesn't say anything about a woman. All it says is he was created from a fluid. So man was created from a fluid that was ejected from between the backbone and the ribs. That's all it says. There's nothing here about a woman. There's nothing here about semen. There's nothing here about, it's just water emerging from between the backbone and the ribs. That's it.
Yeah, that's true, Stops. I think what he's doing there, I'm just looking at it here. Ibn Abbas says the issue was from between the loins of a man and the ribs of a woman, and that's Ibn Abbas. And Al-Jalalain says that it's between the loins of a man and the breastbones of a woman. So he's looking at the tafsirs and trying to go, okay, what does this say? So he's appealing to them and saying, okay, these are what they say. How do you guys explain that? So it's true that it doesn't specifically mention that, but this is what those commentators are saying about it. And presumably he's asking them, do you agree with this? And if you don't, or can you explain what this means? And as you say, that they're just going to reject these as interpretations that they're prepared to accept.
Area. Now, I would like to ask what that fluid is.
Where does it say that?
That in the tafsir of Jalalain, and I think it's Ibn Kathir.
Where does it say that in the verse? Let me read the verse. Let me read the verse.
Okay, read the verse and then go to the tafsir if you could. I use tafsir.com.
Okay. By the heaven and the nightly star, and what will make you realize what the nightly star is. It is a star of piercing brightness. There is no soul without a vigilant angel recording everything. Let people then consider what they were created from. They were created from a spurting fluid, stemming from between the backbone and the rib cage. Surely he is fully capable of bringing them back to life on the day all secrets will be disclosed. Then one will have neither power nor any helper. Okay. So what do you think the Quran is saying there?
Right. Okay. So in those times.
Yeah. Good. Stop there. Go ahead. Stops you first.
Why is he asking me? He is the one who is reading the Quran. I should be the one asking him. Hamza, you just read this. What did you understand from this?
And the other thing he said is, if you remember, if you wind it back, he said, "Can you read that? But can you read the tafsir? Because I want to know if you." Presumably, he wants to know if they agree with the tafsir. So he's not saying that it says the fluid is in the verse. He said it multiple times, as far as I can tell, at least at this stage, that it's in the tafsir. And you remember, he said, please read the tafsir afterwards. And what did Hamza do? He read the verse and then asked him, what do you understand by this? And, what Rob should do here is say, but hang on a moment, I asked you to read the tafsir. I'm not telling you what I understand. I want you to read the tafsir.
Exactly.
Do you guys agree with the tafsir?
Times, medical knowledge was extremely limited. So we have an example of Allah giving us a totally non-scientific description of the human body.
What's non-scientific about it?
When you go to the tafsir of Jalalain, I think Ibn Kathir as well, I can't quite remember, it mentions a woman's chest area. This is even more confusing.
What are we talking about?
I'm talking about the tafsir.
What do you mean? What are you talking about? He's been telling you at least 10 times now what he's talking about, and you're still asking, what are you talking about? Go and open the tafsir.
But the Imam is going to actually read the tafsir now anyway. I've got it from Ibn Abbas, and I've just read it from Jalalain as well, right? So two of them. I don't know if Ibn Kathir says exactly the same, because he normally goes into like a long story here. But at least Abbas and Al-Jalalain say the same thing. So let's let Imran read the verse now, or the tafsir.
For that verse.
No. Okay. So the tafsir would be how the person of the time understood what that verse was saying, yeah? Why Jalalain?
Does Allah not understand that a woman does not have sperm coming from her chest area?
No, it doesn't.
Can I respond?
You're confusing. But just one thing is, Rob, on the one hand, you say this is what Allah said. Then you quote from Jalalain, which is a tafsir or a commentary by Imam Suyuti. So, which is where this phrase comes about some kind of liquid coming from the chest bone area of the woman. So are you objecting? We have to clarify. but we have to clarify this. Are you objecting to what Allah said in the Quran or what Imam Suyuti said in his tafsir? Please don't take the easy way out and say both. What are you specifically objecting to? What Imam Suyuti said or what Allah says in the Quran? They're two different things, right?
You have just shot yourself in the foot. Because what you have just demonstrated so vividly is that if Allah says ABC, what a human being understands is EFW. So he is saying what the people understood at the time was totally different to what Allah actually was what he was trying to talk about in the Quran. Thank you very much. You have just invalidated the Quran. You have just destroyed the credibility. Thank you very much, Sadat.
And also he says, he's like telling him how to answer. Please don't take the easy route and say both. And of course he is going to say both, because he's going to say, well, this rib in the backbones I don't think is correct. But then also when it's elaborated on in the tafsir, where it says the ribs of a woman by Ibn Abbas and breastbones of a woman by Al-Jalalain, I don't think that's correct either. So he is actually, and he's going to say it himself now, he is actually objecting to both. So for this guy to say, oh, well, you can't say X or Y, no. You don't tell somebody how they can and can't answer unless they're being irrational. And at this stage, I don't think he's being irrational. So he's in no position to tell the guys what they should and shouldn't do. But as you say, he's also saying, well, hey, the people at the earliest times didn't seem to have the same understanding. And if they have a different understanding to what either his interpretation or what the Quran, quote unquote, clearly says, well, who's at fault then? Is it the people of the time? Or is it in fact God that can't be clear on what he wants to say?
Yeah.
Why is Allah giving us something that's totally not corresponding with science?
Okay. I'm going to let the doctor speak now, because I know he can smash this from both ends.
Okay, so I've got the Tafsir Jalalain here. It's actually one of the shortest tafsirs that we have. It's written by the two.
Could you read that, please?
Yeah, I'll read it for you. And what I'm going to say to you, actually, that it actually doesn't say what you said it says. That's the first thing. I'll read it in a second to you. Just
stop it here again. Stops. We just got to make note of this, right? This is all poisoning of the well. He hasn't read the tafsir yet, but he's already telling people that it doesn't say what the guy said, right? And this is just disingenuous. And this is and the other thing I was just going to say as well during this, look, you've got these three guys at the moment. Abbas hasn't even come in, and the fellow in the bottom left corner won't actually talk as far as I can remember in this. This is the other reason why going on a panel like this is hugely problematic. You have 3 or 4 guys that interrupt incessantly. And if I go on, what I would attempt to do in future is speak to one guy. Hey, I want to speak to you, Imran. Guys, as much as you guys are here, I'm going to focus on Imran because he's the guy that apparently knows all of this stuff. If you guys pipe up, I'm going to accept that you're making a comment, and I'm going to continue speaking to Imran, because otherwise this is a dog pile situation, and that's part of what this happens as well.
The thing I want to say to you is that this is so apologies, guys, for.
I don't know. Did you see the comment on the screen just now?
Yeah, the one that's on now, or. Hopefully he's referring
all over the place.
Hopefully that person is referring to Hamza, right? Who's all over the place, probably.
Well, Fatima, I think, is talking about Rob, but it's quite uncanny that this is actually perfectly correct if you're talking about Hamza, if you're talking about Imran, or talking about Rob. So all the 3 people who are talking are all over the show.
I think Rob keeps asking about, he wants to know what this liquid is from the breastbone. He's been very clear about that. And he gets that from the tafsirs. He's been clear about that as well, at least as far as I can tell.
Well, I would have liked a more structured approach. I would have liked, look, this is what the Quran says. This is how the people understood this. This is Al-Jalalain. This is what it says there. Have the quote ready and say, okay, now please address this, and not go into this tap dancing session that we see here. The next thing that we see, the next message that we see.
The other thing I want to say to you is that
this. I like this. Okay, this for me is style. That somebody puts in $5 just to make a joke. He says, the woman's chest area, so the liquid we're talking about is milk. So I'm sure this is a non-Muslim who's like really mocking this, but it's worth $5 to him. I like this. The person who did this to much of the chagrin of the people was Abdullah Samia, because he was not let onto the panel. So he was spending like $5 throws like 3 times, making comments, making fun of the people that he wasn't allowed on the panel, but he did it by giving them $5 so that they couldn't suppress the message. So I thought this was quite funny. This appeals to my sense of humor.
And this is so apologies, guys, for this.
No, go for it, bro.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
I want to show you
Look,
guys
I
something.
told you he came on to speak about this thing, and he did exactly that. But
This is
anyway,
going to make you laugh. Yeah, this is going to make you laugh. So this is a plug, almost a plug. If I can get rid of this thing. So this is me, believe it or not. How many years ago? 11 years ago.
Subhanallah.
And this is a video. I used to have hair in those days. You can see, mashallah. And this is the video that's responding to who? None other than Dr. Nabil Qureshi on this very same subject. So the title is The Quran, Embryology and Semen Production from Between the Backbones and the Ribs. A two-part video, about 10 minutes each.
What's the channel, Imran? Can you remind us the channel? Because then people can actually watch the whole video if they'd like to.
Foundational Thoughts is what it's called, but there's no new videos on it. But this is how old this question is. This is over a decade old.
Well, I'm sorry. I have already destroyed it a decade ago. So I don't know why you're still bringing this up. This has been destroyed centuries ago, and you're still bringing this up.
Okay. And this is how well responded to these questions are. Yeah.
No, yeah, I see. Okay, I'm just repeating myself.
So, because there's nothing that you've said that I haven't responded to. So what I did was I tackled it from the scientific perspective at that time. And when I did this video, brother Nabil Qureshi, who's passed away now, unfortunately, he emailed me to say, look, that was a really good response. Let me try and get back to you. And he hasn't. Obviously now he's no longer able to do that. But he wasn't able to respond to the points that I've made. But I went through. So I'm going to read this tafsir to you, and then we're going to. I just want to do two things. Give the understanding as is the most common understanding, which is what this is talking about.
Okay, this is one thing I really don't like about Imran. He talks and talks and talks. I'm simply just saying, look, I've got the book here. I've shown you Al Jalalain. Let me quickly read the relevant section, and then we can talk about this. Instead, now he brings up like a whole story and he gives us the history of embryology or something. Why does he do that? What is he trying to achieve here? Why doesn't he go straight to the point that is being contested here? It would be so easy.
He's setting it up, right? It's just a rhetorical technique. I'm not even sure if he realizes he's doing it. Maybe he does, maybe he isn't, right? It's setting it up. It's like building something up that you're going to knock over easily. So I'm going to go through this, and I'm just going to bat this out of the park in no time. So it's all with that sort of intention in mind. That's what's going on here.
Mansour has mentioned this, brother Hamza has mentioned this before. It's the most straightforward way of explaining it.
There you go.
Then the other way we can then tackle this is look at it from the scientific perspective. And if you look at it from the scientific perspective, you're going to be surprised, because then you're going to have to tell me what the understanding was at the time, because that's the comparison that we're going to make. The second thing is that you have to then tell me how the physiology is, so to make sure that actually your understanding of how the human body works is accurate. And then we have to do a comparison of that with the Quranic statements. So let me read the Jalalain for you to see if this is what it says. So I'm going to start from verse 5. Yeah. Now, the way that the Jalalain is written is it's portions of the Quran with text in between that explains it. So it's not a very deep tafsir, it's just a very superficial one. So verse 5, a man has only to look at, reflect on and consider, this is in the brackets, what he was created from. Verse 6, he was created from a spurting fluid, and then in brackets, the liquid proceeding from the sexual union of the man and the woman within the womb. Verse 7, a liquid, this is in brackets, emerging from between the backbone, in brackets, of a man and the breastbone of a woman. And he, Allah is in brackets, certainly has the power to return to life. And then we have the continuation from there. Now, that's the tafsir. Now, what you're going to do now...
Okay. Isn't that exactly what this Rob MTT was saying?
Yeah, he was basically saying that, hey, there's this fluid that comes from the breastbone. He was asked, where did you get that from? He pointed to Jalalain. Imran has read that now, but now listen to what he's doing. He's now going to tell the guy what he's going to do. Now I'm going to predict what you're going to do. You're going to do da-da-da-da, you're going to do da-da-da-da, right? This is all just a poisoning of the well. Instead of answering the question directly and say, hey, here's why I think this is wrong, da-da-da-da-da, he's going to prop it up and say what he thinks so that he can knock it over so it looks like it's a ridiculous question.
Yeah, but for me, I don't understand that they all of them went, no, that's not what it says. And then he reads it, and that's exactly what it says. So,
well, Hamza's claim was it didn't say it in the Quran, right? But Rob's point was never that it said in the Quran. He said that it was explained in the tafsir with this, and he was questioning how that could be the case, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but then Imran said, no, that's not what it says in Al-Jalalain. When now he's reading it, that's exactly what it says. This is weird.
In fact, I'll predict what you're going to do. You're going to try to say that his understand that the person who's writing this, we have to accept their statements as scientific statements.
No, we have to accept that this is the way that they understood the Quran. This is what they understood, what the Quran is telling them. This is the understanding at the time, and that's it. That's what we need to accept.
And
so if
further-
Al-Jalalain did not understand the Quran, okay, then you need to tell us, okay, we can totally ignore Al-Jalalain. They did not understand the Quran. Just forget about them.
And what's your basis for doing that? But further, you are then going to claim that you have the correct interpretation, and the justification we'll wait, because Stops is going to bring up some stuff later on about this. So it's not just that if you're going to ignore Al-Jalalain, then it's not about the science per se, it's about the interpretation, right? If you're going to say that this person who's a well accepted scholar, you don't accept this, or that it's not accurate or whatever, and you're going to give us the science, you can give us whatever science you want. It may or may not be correct, and Stops will talk about that. But how do you justify that you have the correct interpretation and he doesn't? You're just a doctor, MD, and we'll see how knowledgeable you are about that even. But how is it that you're challenging that interpretation?
I'm not even sure that he's a doctor, because it's not a lot of knowledge or medical knowledge that comes from anatomy. I don't know what kind of a doctor he is.
That's the position that you're going to hold, which is disingenuous. And there's very good reasons to say disingenuous in this case. So I've read it for you. Sorry, I didn't know your name was
Rob.
That's Rob. I read it for you, Rob. So tell me, Rob, what is the point that you want to make about this? You're going to say that, as Brother Sadat said, either the tafsir is wrong, or you're going to say Allah is wrong, or both. What is it you're trying to say?
I think they're all wrong.
So you think both?
If you can tell me what this fluid is that comes from a woman's chest, I would love dearly to know.
Sure.
I really would.
So
I don't think you do. I don't think you do want to know.
Yeah, I don't at all. So let's have a look at this.
This is so sick. This is so sick. He's telling him what he's going to do. The other guy says, "No, I'm sure you don't even want to know." When he just said, "Yeah, I'd like to know how you explain this."
And even Imran said the same, right?
Unbelievable.
My brother, step in. I'm talking a lot, so if you step in if you need to.
No. Please deal with this.
Okay, so the common understanding of the verse, and I'm going to bring my clear Quran for this, is that this is talking about the human being. Okay, not talking about anything.
No, it's not. Let me just be clear. Okay, it's not talking about the human being. It says from what he was created. The what is the material. It's not the location or anything. From what means how he was created using what material. And then it says the material is a fluid. And this fluid is ejected from between. Okay? So what Imran is doing, he's saying, no. We're not talking about the fluid. We're talking about man. So how was man created? And that is not what we're talking about.
Oh, okay. I think that was the bigger picture, that these three verses are talking about the quote unquote, in inverted commas, the creation of man. I thought that's what he was referring to.
Yeah, but here this is about the fluid.
Okay, but the fluid
Yes.
in relation to the creation of a human or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Man is created from a fluid. But where does the fluid come from? The fluid comes from between the backbone and the ribs. So we're not talking about whether man was created. We're not talking about where man was created, how it was created, but that it is a fluid. Now, this is also wrong. Okay, the fluid, by the way, here is is water. So water cannot create anything. So we're talking about the fluid and where it comes from, not the rest. I mean, if he was created or not, this is not something that we can observe. We're talking about only the fact that we're talking about the fluid, where it comes from. This is the question that Rob MTT is asking. Where does the fluid come from? And Al-Jalalain, they are specifically saying that it comes from the woman's rib cage. And he says, where is this the case? How can you get from Allah saying from a fluid to a woman's rib cage? And is this version correct that this is coming from there? Those are the two questions basically that he's talking about.
These particular.
Oh, hang on, what happened now?
Just go there.
There we go.
But the human being. So it says, verse 5, let the people consider what they were created from, referring to man. What is mankind, as in the term? They, mankind, were created from a spurting fluid emerging. And who was emerging? The mankind. Man is emerging.
No. You see, this is the problem. And this is where he's so disingenuous, because he's trying to twist this that man is emerging. No, it is the fluid that is emerging, not man. Man is not coming from between the ribs. It is the fluid. And this is where Imran is being incredibly dishonest here, not just disingenuous, by trying to twist it into man. And this is the trick that he's using here.
From bayna sulbi wa tara'i, between the backbone and the rib. Now, when you're saying you want to know about the breastbone, the question I'm going to ask you is, where is the word? So let me just clarify that. So this is specifically talking about human beings emerging from the between the sulb and the tara'i, so between the backbone and the rib, and this is the birth of man. Essentially, this is what it's referring to. But let's look at it from a scientific perspective. They're saying that this fluid, this gushing fluid, comes from bayna, between sulb wa tara'i. Now the question is, what are these two words referring to? So we have the translation in English, but I want you to give me a translation of where you get the understanding of what these words are. Nate?
Just from reading the Quran and the Tafsir.
Okay, so you've read the Quran and the Tafsir, and that's the only thing that you've understood from it.
Yeah, but I cannot, correspond this with science whatsoever. What liquid are we talking about comes from a woman's chest?
Exactly.
Okay. So let me clarify for you.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Let me clarify for you. So the word sulb refers specifically to the male member. Now all you need to do is...
You see, he doesn't address the question at all. He pretends as though we're still talking about man emerging. He doesn't react to what Rob MTT was just asking, which is very specific. Where does the fluid come from? And he's saying, no, you need to look at the breastbone. He's totally ignoring the fluid. He wants to go and talk only about man, because that is where he wants to go, and that is what he's going to address. And this is exactly what I'm referring to. If you ask him, how much is 2 and 2? He's going to tell you 5. You see, I've responded. But he's going to give you a totally wrong answer, because he's not answering the question, where does the fluid come from, but where man comes from. And that is not the question.
Grab a Quran, any Arabic dictionary that's old, so Lane's Lexicon, whatever you want to refer to, and that's what...
Okay, should I go and do that?
Yeah, if you've got it there.
Let me quickly go and open Lane's dictionary and take a look what it says about these words. All right, this is Lane's lexicon. And
can
what
you make
we
it a bit
see
bigger
here,
if you can?
Bigger.
The text. There we go. Okay, perfect.
Is that bigger?
Yep.
Okay. Now I need to find the space again. So this is Lane's lexicon. All right, let me go to the top so that I'm not cheating. Okay, so this is the Arab Dictionary Arabic English Lexicon by Edward William Lane. And we're looking at exactly at this word, tara'ib. This is the possibility that Lane is talking about, that Imran is rejecting. So I need to find, okay. Signifies the part of the breast which is the place of the collar or necklace. So by the common consent of the lexicologists, or the bones of the breast, or the bones of the breast that are between the collarbone and the pap, or the part of the breast or the chest that is next to the two collarbones, or the part that is between the two breasts and the collarbones, or 4 ribs of the right side of the chest and the 4 of the left thereof, or the 2, and so on and so forth. So it's always the same thing. It's always next to the collarbones, or the uppermost part of the human breast, beneath the chin. And so
and this, what is the word that is being used here, though? Is it ma, did he say? Or?
No, ma is water.
Okay, so what's the word that he's using here that he's appealing to Lane's lexicon?
The tara'ib.
Oh, okay.
And this is what Lane's lexicon is saying. So I don't know where the hell this guy gets it from, that this is not. No, he's saying, well, let's go to Lane's lexicon, for example, and take a look what it says. Well, this is Lane's lexicon, and this is what it says. Okay, so how can you go against this?
Oh, well, let's see what he says now, yeah.
This is, it's amazing for me that he has the audacity to go and say, well, let's go to Lane's lexicon and see what he says, when this is exactly what it says. Now I need to find the... Oh, shit.
No, I should do that in future. Save you having to
Oh, shit.
lose it. And so stops at just finding the tab there. So I think what I'll do, I'll bring that up in future
I
if we
found
need to
it.
bring that up. Okay.
Got it. Okay. All right. So let me just go back 2 seconds. So we are on 2015 or something. Okay. This is what he says.
No, you've shared it without audio. Stop and do it again.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I think don't not share that anymore. Stops. If there's something, just tell me and I'll bring it up and I can share my screen. Saves you having to go in and out like that. Just for people who are wondering, if you've got lots of tabs open and you're using StreamYard, it's not always easy to see which tab it is you need to select. And when you do select the tab, you've also got to hit the share audio, otherwise you don't hear it.
That's what I just did, yeah.
Sulb refers specifically to the male member. Now, all you need to do is grab a Quran, any Arabic dictionary that's old, so Lane's Lexicon, whatever you want to refer to, and that's what I refer to in the talk that I gave. And you want to look up these two words, Sulb and Tara'ib, okay? Now, the word Tara'ib, we know from Taj al-Urs and other dictionaries that deal with rare words, because it's actually a very rare word. It's not new.
Okay, now I would have to go and do this again because it's not actually a rare word. Let me quickly do this anyway because this is so disingenuous, really. This is so terrible what this Imran guy is doing. This is so dishonest. It is amazing. This is a list of all the sentences where this comes up. Okay, so if you say this is a rare word, then you would expect this to come up once. Okay, so like in Tarabun, from Tara'ib you get Tarabun as a noun. But the funny thing is, if you go through the Quran, this is not a rare word. This is not exactly what I would call rare. I would call, this is quite frequently used. I would not call this rare. So I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what this guy is really talking about. This is not honest. This is not something that you can say, all right, yeah.
But I think he's appealing to things, Stops, where nobody's going to go check this. So you've checked this. Other people are going to take him at his word that this is rare. No Muslim is going to check this. You and I might check this, or at least in this case you did. And of course, if you're doing it live with somebody on a show, you're not going to say, okay, stop, I want to check if it's in fact rare, right? You're just going to take it that it's the case. But when we stop and do this, as you point out, then it's not so rare. But he's making the claim that it is. And the other thing is he's going to be believed here because here's the other thing, right? People will think, okay, he's a doctor, but automatically that also then, the human mind then also gets tricked into thinking that his expertise on the translation and the meaning of Quranic words, because he's been bigged up as a doctor and they know this, the two merge together and people sort of go, okay, he's an expert. And at best, he might be an expert in some medical ideas, but he's certainly not an expert in linguistics or the Quran or anything like that. But they all get merged together, and that gives him a veneer, this idea that he's more knowledgeable than in fact he actually is.
Yeah, and this is, I think I've just exposed him twice, where he's saying something that is definitely not the case. It is not true what he is saying. I've done this twice now. Now, I'm going to do this a couple more times now, tonight. So please remember, if you hear anybody, and especially this appeal to authority, if you say, well, he's a doctor, he's a this and this, and he's a PhD, don't fall for it. Go and check it anyway. This is what critical thinking is all about. Do it. Think, check, verify.
Usual word. The word Tara'ib, and if you want to see evidence of this, just look at Muhammad Assad's translation of this word Tara'ib. And he actually makes them note that this is a very rare word, and what it really means is arch of bones. And this.
So, number one, he brings up the opinion of one guy, and he says, "Well, this guy is what you need to believe." Why? I don't know. And what does he say? Well, he says exactly what the others are saying. It's the arch of bones. So it's also referring to the ribs. So what the hell are you talking about?
This is why commonly it's translated as ribs, but actually it doesn't mean ribs, it means arch of...
It says it's the arch of ribs, and that's why it's translated as ribs, but actually the ribs are not the ribs, it's something else. Come on, you're being ridiculous now.
This
Now
is
you're
also
being
cherry
silly.
picking, right? It's exactly what you said, right? They're rejecting Al Jalalain here because they presumably think that it's been cherry picked. But at this moment in time, he cherry picks some person who claims that it's rare and it actually means something else that nobody else accepts, and he's cherry picking that.
Yeah.
Bones. And also in the Taj al-Urus, this is specified, and even in Lane's lexicon, it's specified as being specifically something that is found in women. Okay, now that's...
Actually, it doesn't. This is an interpretation. This is not something that is obvious in the Quran. This is just over the centuries, people have tried to massage this so that it does seem correct in some way. This is why they've split this into man and woman. This is nonsense. In Arabic, for example, and I don't know if people are aware of this, the word vagina is typically a female sort of thing, but it's male. So the what you call this? It's not the pronoun. Okay, you have male and female. Like they always make a point of the B is female, because in Arabic you have male and female. In lots of languages you have that. In German you have 3 genders actually. You have male, female, and neutral. But vagina is male. So the gender of a word does not necessarily reflect the usage or the location or anything of that very word. So this doesn't make sense what he's doing now either.
That's another thing with this word, that is specifically found, something that's found in women. Now, obviously, ribs are found in men and women. So it can't be talking...
Oops. So he's just contradicted himself. So the word rib is something that refers to women, but it's found in men and women. Now what? Yes.
About ribs, right? So the question is, which other arch of bones is there that this is referring to then? So there's only one other arch really of bones that we have, and this is the pelvis, yeah?
No. The hand is an arch of bones. What are you talking about? The skull is an arch of bones. We have the inner ear is an arch of bones. I don't know. Your anatomy, your knowledge of anatomy is really weak.
But it's
and the female patient
there, but it's also a case of can we see what's going on here? He has in his mind the idea of what this is, what he wants this to say, and he's trying to eliminate other things to get to this, because in his mind there's no other part of the body that has this. If we get rid of this bit or that bit, this is the only bit left. But in his mind he started with this bit. So this is like having a conclusion and then working back to try and eliminate everything else or ignoring things, as you're pointing out there, so that this is the conclusion, and then go, look, I've just shown that that's a conclusion. That's what you wanted all the time, and you were very selective about trying to prove that conclusion and doing nothing about attempting to disprove it. The exact opposite of the scientific method, which is there's a hypothesis, let's see if we can falsify or confirm it. We're not going to start with a conclusion in mind and work backwards. We're going to work towards a conclusion and see whether we can falsify it or confirm it.
Yeah, and when we go and we refute ourselves, we contradict ourselves, then we quickly hurry back and find something better so that we can somehow prove the conclusion. Now, he's just contradicted himself twice in his own attempt at somehow validating this. This is silly because, I mean, come on, what is he talking about? Men have hips, women have hips. Yes, the shape is slightly different, but that's it. It's also a cradle. You're talking nonsense, Dr. Imran.
The pelvis is specifically different from the male pelvis because of this process of childbirth that we're aware of. Now, this is...
I'm pretty sure it says breastbones. I'm pretty sure it says breastbone from memory.
It's not written in English.
You why it's not breastbone. You know.
And Rob MTT is... I'm sorry. You should go, we're talking about the fluid. Because you're letting Imran get away with it, because he's now directing the attention towards, and this is now a straw man, because he's directing the attention towards the shape of the pelvis. That is slightly different between males and females. And that is not the issue that we're talking about. We're talking about a fluid that men allegedly are being created from, which is water, which is bullshit, and the fact that it's supposed to be coming from between the rib cage and the spine, and you have now eliminated rib cage and spine, so now you're only going for the ribs, but only specifically of the woman. So you are like moving, you are changing the Quran so much, it's amazing.
Not listening, Rob.
It's not written in English, Rob. That's the problem. So what you're doing is you're saying, I will only allow you to tell me the meaning of the English translation.
No. I'm coming from a scientific point
No.
of view.
We get to the science, but first you have to get past the language.
Rob, Imran has just explained to you, when you go to the Arabic, it can't be referring to breastbone.
That's not what
Did you understand what he said, or would you want to hear him say it
No,
again?
he
So
didn't.
I think what we have to do with you, Rob, is underline as we go.
Yeah.
So you can't
So
keep that.
Qara'ib is a rare Arabic word that refers to arch of bones that is
It
specific
doesn't.
to women.
It's not.
But what is this fluid? What is it?
I'll come to it. I'll explain
You're
to
not even
you.
listening, Rob. You're listening to what he's saying, please.
So I'm explaining to you why your understanding isn't right, but you seem to be struggling.
And now it's correct. This is what he needs to be doing. And Imran is going to ignore it. He is not going to go there. I'm 100% sure.
With listening to it and hearing the differences.
I'm struggling to understand what this fluid is already.
Yeah, because I haven't got to the
Struggling
fluid.
to understand what the bones are. Forget the fluid.
Rob, do you
Well,
want to
yeah,
understand it?
I'd love to know what bones in a woman this fluid comes from.
Rob, will you stop
No, it doesn't
lying
say-
to
this is the
yourself
thing.
saying you'd love to know? You don't want to know. You're just trying to feel the
I
narrative.
do-
Yeah, you see, as soon as he starts getting specific and people can't answer the question, and I think instinctively Hamza knows that there is no answer to this question. He goes and questions the integrity of the questioner. They cannot find an answer, and that's the only thing they can do. This is a typical ad hominem. Instead of addressing the question, address the speaker and tell him you don't really want to know. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
Okay,
Hamza,
Rob,
I thought about converting to Islam a few times.
Rob, please, I've spoke to you. Yeah, I'm going to show I'm going to give the link to the video so people can see your disingenuousness, your insincerity.
Well,
But anyway,
Muslims, Muslims have asked me.
If your question was
Muslims
serious,
have asked me.
Rob,
Muslims have asked me for a part
I'm
two.
interested in what Muslims have asked you. I'm not interested in what Muslims have asked you. What I'm saying to you, Rob, if you were sincere, you would say, "Oh, Dr. Imran, I wasn't aware that them bones wasn't referring to the breastbone. It's referring to the pelvis, is it? Okay, fair enough. So the bones is the pelvis. Continue, doctor. Is this fluid coming from the pelvis? That's what you should be saying.
So there's
let's just
another
stop there
issue.
again. That's again just it's like scraping the bottom of the barrel. I appreciate, but telling him what he should be doing, and you've pointed out, and we've looked at, it doesn't actually say that anywhere. And I and other people shouldn't just be accepting it because Imran is saying it, right? He's not a linguist. He's not an expert on any of these things, and he's cherry picking some words that he claims gets to the position that he wants to get to, and he hasn't demonstrated that. Right, the fact that he's just reading something off is certainly and I wouldn't accept that either. And Hamza, of course, in his blind devotion and following, because that's what he does, will just believe whatever Imran says. If Imran said the sky was purple because somehow this was a medical invention, he would go around telling everybody the sky is purple because Imran, who's a medical doctor, said so. So he's completely baffled and hoodwinked and hypnotized by whatever Imran says because he must be correct because he's a medical doctor. This is an appeal. This is a genuine appeal to authority. He has no idea. He'll just follow whatever Imran says, and it is automatically true. And now Rob's getting a tongue wagging from Hamza because he's not being as gullible as Hamza is.
But I don't think anybody has realized that he's just shot down Imran. Because Hamza, because he's a big mouth, he doesn't understand what's going on. So he's just saying things. He's just opening his mouth. But what he's just said is, wait until the doctor explains to you how the fluid can come from the bones. And Imran is doing his best to go away from that, to stay away from that. And now Hamza has just dropped him in the shit. So that now, I don't know if he's going to simply ignore it or if he's going to address this in some way. But this is quite silly. If you don't know what you're doing and then you're talking, you might drop your pal in the shit.
But he does this. He does this regularly, as we've seen in other reviews. But the other thing that's worth doing here is just ignore him and say, "Okay, Imran, let's get back to you there." Like you just ignore anything that Hamza said because it's of no value. It doesn't. All it does is sidestep. It poisons the well, and it's disingenuous. So just avoid that because otherwise you just start to get into a battle with him, and then the whole point is lost. Right, so you just go back to Imran as if like all of that is blown by you. Not always easy to do because it's it sounds like it's an insult and ad hominem. But if you want to continue discussion, it's not possible to do it with him. So you've just got to either ignore that or find a way to get back onto Imran.
As well, Robin, the way you've explained this. So it doesn't say that the liquid comes from the bones.
Aha! But this is what Hamza just said. So how come Hamza just told you exactly this and now Imran is telling Hamza, no, you are wrong?
It says Baina. What does Baina mean?
Between.
No, I'm not an Arabic speaker.
Well, this is the problem, you see, because it's not saying from, it's saying between. Baina means between. I live Baina Baina Masjid. You know, it means you live between the house and the mosque. You know, and this is what it's saying. It's in Baina Sulbi what Tara'ib. So it's between. The liquid comes from between.
But what is this liquid?
Let him finish. He was just going to drop himself in there because it's between the ribs and the spine. And this is the problem. But did you see how he started hesitating? Because he realized that he was going to give it all away.
Doctor, what is this liquid?
But this is the thing. I'll come to it. I'll explain what the liquid is in the man and the woman.
Are you thirsty, Rob? Are you thirsty? You're obsessed by liquid.
I'm going to make a cup of tea after this debate. I'm going to make a cup
This Abbas guy is really useless.
of tea after this debate.
Get a cup of tea, and then we can talk about this liquid for you. Yeah.
Rob, do you concede that the bones is not talking about the breastbone, it's talking about the pelvic bone? Do you concede that, or do we need to establish that?
No, it doesn't say
When
that.
I read the tafsir, I'm pretty sure I remember something about a breastbone.
Okay, whatever you've remembered, the doctors explained to you how it cannot be referring to the breastbone, it can only be referring to the pelvic bone.
I mean,
He's made a claim. Hamza, don't you understand the difference?
No,
He
no.
has not done
doesn't
anything.
those
He's
dots.
not demonstrated. He's not shown. He has not provided evidence. All he's done is he's made a claim. Now, I have just very easily, within seconds, been able to refute the claim that this is shown that this is a false claim. So I wouldn't open my mouth if I'm not sure of what I'm talking about. Now, Hamza has no clue what is going on here, yet he is the one who's talking.
Yeah, but he's
It's easy to find.
He's taking Imran as an authority. So if Imran says something in Hamza's limited mind, that just means that it's a fact of the matter. There's no further discussion on it. Why is this the case? Because presumably Imran is somehow an expert. How do we demonstrate he's an expert? Well, because he did a video 10 years ago that apparently nobody's been able to respond to. This is the logic. This is the level of thinking that we are up against. That's why it's not valuable to have a conversation with him. Whatever you do there, all you're going to do is lose brain cells and you're going to go backwards. You're not going to be able to go forwards or something like that. So you have to kind of ignore that and just focus on Imran, no matter what other noise you hear in your ears. Very difficult to do in a live scenario, I'll grant.
It's on tafsir.com, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think the confusion, brothers, I think the confusion is arising from the fact that Rob is still referencing the English translation of the tafsir of Jalalain. He's talking about the tafsir of Jalalain, whereas Dr. Imran is going back to the original source. He's talking about the Arabic of the Quran. So Rob, have you understood that right now, we're not discussing the English translation of Jalalain. Right now, Dr. Imran is explaining to you the terminology that is used in the Quran. He's explaining the meanings of the Arabic words in the Quran.
His selected understanding of the English translation of the Quran. That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
We have to be on the same page about that, right?
Well, we just need to establish what this liquid is.
Yeah, we can.
Exactly. Go for
If
it.
you, there's two ways of doing this, Rob. So one way is go and watch the video 11 years ago, and that will tell you
Stop
exactly.
there for a moment. Actually, there's a little bit of, I think there's a bit of, what I think Rob is doing well here, he's frustrating Hamza. And on rare occasions, I actually don't mind seeing that happen because Hamza is such a frustrating individual. So when he gets frustrated, and I'm going to give Rob a little tick in the box for that one, because you could see he got frustrated there because he kept asking, I just want to know what this fluid is. And Hamza's like, losing the marbles there a little bit. And in that respect, I'm actually going to, be on his side for one time, even if it's not necessarily like the perfect follow-on, but it is a good thing because that's what he originally wanted to know. And all of the other
sticking to his
around.
guns. Yeah. True.
Exactly, I've answered this question exactly. Or if you've got the time and if you're interested, I can explain it to you. I'm trying to remember back 10 years and explain it to you what I knew then. What would you like me to do? Do you want to go and watch?
No, this is not what you remembered or what you knew 10 years ago. All you need to do is explain where the liquid. What is so difficult? Where does the liquid come from? What is this fluid? Tell us.
The video.
No. I've got two other questions, by the way. He's not going to. I mean, they're
No, please. Why do you do that? Oh, no.
He's not going to go off on it anyway. They're not going to let him go off on that, so don't worry.
fairly brief if you'll be able to answer them. But yeah,
no chance. Not even having no chance. You've asked a basic question that's been batted out the park so many times, and it's been broken down, and you can't even grasp it. So if you try to ask something a little bit more technical on it, we're wasting our time.
Well, I thought this was a forum. I thought this was a forum where we could ask what we wanted.
No, you can ask what you want, but if you demonstrate disingenuousness and insincerity, we're not going to waste our time with you.
Darren, Hamza, it's just questions. I mean, that nobody's been rude, nobody's been offensive.
Rob, what you've got to realise, Rob, is that we have a lot of people waiting in the chat to try to get on to ask questions. Now, the thing here is this, Rob, if you ask a question, and just like Hamza said, that what an honest person would do, Rob, and I challenge people to say whether I'm being unfair here or not. What an honest person would do, Rob.
What an honest person should do, and you should follow along, because I have some objective morality or some right answers to what I think an objective, what an honest person should do. So I'm not going to give you my subjective opinion, aka Abbas. And why should we accept this? Because it's your opinion? Yeah. No, we won't do that.
Is as if Imran, being a medical doctor and understanding Arabic more than you, starts to explain to you what this actually means, that you'd actually listen.
Oh, the liquid, yeah.
Now, come on, just read this. Are the two ribs that are next to the two collarbones? This is what we just read. And this is exactly what he is showing here. So he has now the cheek to bring this up and highlight and drawing your attention to the one where it says something slightly different. And all the other ones are exactly what I read just now. I don't know if you remember this.
Yes, yeah, it's all above there as well.
So it's exactly, I use exactly this, beneath the chin. So this is exactly Lane's lexicon, what I was just reading. And it says here, it's beneath the chin, the ribs beneath the chin, the uppermost part of the human breast. That's what it says in Lane's lexicon. Okay, and then it says relates to the males and females in common. Okay, please note it relates to males and females in common. But then
it says, and they've taken the highlighted part, yeah.
Most of the authors on strange words affirm decidedly that it is peculiar to women. So if it is a strange word, then it is that. But in general, it is understood to be the ribs and the upper chest area, the ribs. So what is it? And of the camel is the part which is, so I don't know, are they referring to a camel here? That is peculiar to female camels or something? I don't know. But the point is, they are being so dishonest. And anybody who reads this, anybody who says, yeah, but hang on, look what it says there. It's saying the opposite. Why are you taking this part of the sentence and not the one above it?
Fine, yeah, that's fine.
Listen attentively.
Yeah, the liquid. Yeah, the liquid.
Listen attentively, and then you would say, actually, you know what? Maybe I misunderstood that. But you're not prepared to do
the
that.
liquid, yeah. No, I am. I would be happy to hear what this liquid is. So that would be good.
Okay, I'll tell you what it is. This is actually just a screenshot from the video that I did in part 2, where it explains where the word tara'ib and why I say it's unusual.
It doesn't explain that it is unusual.
And this is Lane's lexicon. It's talking about this. It says that tara'ib relates to males and females in common, but most of the authors on strange words, so this is like I said, it's an unusual, rare word, affirm decidedly that it is peculiar to women.
Okay.
It is something specific to women. The word tara'ib is specific to women. Now, this is written in, I think, in the 1700s by Professor Lane, and it's basically a non-Muslim work, so the Muslims haven't done this, and it's not it's very straightforward. This is what this means. It's a rare word, and it applies specifically to women. So,
okay, I just want to point out, just half a centimeter above, it says relates to males and females in common. So I don't understand why it says relates to males and females in common, and then says, but most of the authors on strange words, which it is not, affirm decidedly that it's peculiar to women. I don't understand why it says that.
I just want you to see that. This is within the video. You can go and have a look at this. Now, so the question you're asking is, okay, so the sulb I'm telling you refers to the man, and the tara'ib refers to the woman. Between these two places, a liquid is released by either. So the man has a liquid that's released, and the woman has a liquid that's released.
Okay, is he going to specify?
That go on then to form the human being. This is the claim.
No, that's not a claim. Whose claim is that? Which claim? Who's making that claim? Is that your claim? When he says that claim, whose claim? His claim. Whose claim is he talking about here? It's not Rob's claim.
Oh my God, you're like children, really.
This is the scientific way of looking at the same verse.
I'm sorry. This is crazy. There are two liquids which are released and they form a new human being. So if you take gin and tonic, you get a human being, or what? Come on, Dr. Imran, are you seriously a doctor? Are you seriously putting your entire reputation on the line here and telling us that a human being is formed by two liquids coming together? What the?
Okay. The question you're asking is, which liquid is it that comes from a woman that would
Yes,
fulfill
that's
this
right.
idea of a gushing fluid, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The answer's in the video, but I'm going to give you the summary of this. Before I do that, I'm going to spend 30 seconds.
Oh no, come on. Again, what you said earlier, Rob, he's first setting it up. He can't just say, look, there's a gushing fluid that comes from the rib of the woman or from the, I don't know, what do you want to call this area? Somewhere, I don't know.
The word that or the phrase that's used here sometimes in psychology and so forth is priming. So he's priming the human mind. This is something that's been well documented. There's a great example of this with Michael Shermer in the TED Talk, where he plays music backwards and says, you can't pick up anything. Then he gives you the words like the subtitles, and he plays the music at the same time. Suddenly your brain is primed to hear things that you would otherwise have been gibberish that sounds like it matches the text you're seeing on screen. He's priming this now to move towards his already chosen conclusion. That's why he's giving this priming part of information before he answers directly.
And telling you what the understanding at the time was of in the 7th century was of reproduction, and this is sort of Aristotelian and type of understanding. And what was it? And this is what you'd expect the Quran to be talking about, right? This is what you'd expect to see if the Quran was copying inaccurate information from the people of the time, because that information definitely wasn't accurate, because Aristotle was wrong and Galen was wrong on reproduction. The idea that so Aristotle had this idea that there were humors, so that would be like a heat and a cold and an earth that would move together and gel to form the human being, and these would solidify in different ways. And Galen's understanding was almost that this was like the human being was almost preformed, like in a seed, like an acorn is for an oak tree, and it was implanted into the soil of them, and the woman really just receive this.
Look at Abbas on the top left, just nodding away. Now, what Imran is doing, he's quoting the Quran now, because this is exactly what the Quran is saying, that the woman is like tilth. And you can plant the seed, and this is verbatim what the Quran says, plant the seed into the tilth, and this is how you create new human beings. So if you look at the different Greek, well, what you want to call it, philosophers, who were propagating anything about human reproduction, if you take a look at Galen and the different stages that he propagates and how he names them, they are being repeated in the Quran almost word for word. So you can find, and I've made a table somewhere which shows this. So I don't know how Imran can be so dishonest and say, no, this has nothing to do with the Greeks.
But what he's doing, Stops, is he's got a pre-conclusion. His inference or his interpretation is that it matches science. So what he's attempting to do is say, no. But what Galen did was wrong. The Quran doesn't say what Galen says. You're saying the Quran does. He's saying, no, but the Galen got it wrong. The Quran doesn't actually say what Galen says. It says what I say, and what I say matches science. Therefore, the Quran is correct. But you can see that he's setting this all up. This is all priming to get to that point, to bat away all these other people that got it wrong, and to suggest that his interpretation is the correct and only one that should be used. And that's exactly what the science says, and that's what the Quran refers to. So, but he's getting there via this long-winded route, so that he can build this all up and prime it, so that this is the only conclusion that you can come to by his lights.
And the funny thing is, if you look at this, how come, if this is the case, why did they have to wait 1,000 years for non-Muslims to go and explain reproduction if it was in the Quran? How come they did not correct what the Greeks were saying? And why doesn't it say, well, humans before used to believe this and this, but I am now giving you the facts, and this is the way that it is? Why does it go and just reiterate what the Greeks are saying? It doesn't correct it in any way. How does it correct it? By saying that there's a liquid coming from between the ribs and the backbone. This is Aristotelian understanding. This is what Hippocrates thought, and then we're going to the homunculus, the ready-formed miniature human being. This is exactly what the Quran repeats. So if you apply the model that the Greeks prescribed, then everything fits. But if you go into what Imran now says, it doesn't fit. It does not work.
Seed and the being would grow. Both of these are wrong. The Quran here is saying something very profound. The man contributes something, and the woman contributes something that then form the human being. Far beyond anything. This is not.
What do they contribute? No comment. Something. What is this something? A liquid.
Where exactly does it say this?
Yeah. Understood at that time that the women are also contributing to the human being. That's in that sense. They were just receptacles, i.e., they were just the soil in which the seed would grow. So these are profound differences. Now, we understand what the liquid that comes from the sulb of the man is. This is the semen. Some people, very strangely, seem to believe that the sperm is made. The sperm comes from the testicles when that time of copulation happens. Do you think that's what you think, Rob?
Another strawman.
Yeah,
Nobody
exactly. Listen to what he said there, right? Do you think that sperm comes from the testicles at the moment of copulation? No, nobody thinks that, as far as I'm aware.
Exactly.
People think that the sperm is created there and then moves along tubes. So notice how the way the question has been inaccurately phrased already, like a straw man question, so he can bat it down.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay, so that's factually incorrect. Okay, when you ejaculate, sorry, brothers and sisters, I have to be a bit. The semen does not come. The sperm does not come from your testicles.
It does.
Okay. The testicles are a place where the sperm is made. They are then moved from this place.
Okay, so stop there. Stop right there. Okay, listen carefully to this, right? That's where they're made. That's what it means to come from something. What he's now going to equivocate on, hey, it moves up here and it gets stored in this particular place. And that's now what I'm going to call where it comes from. So he's now choosing to arbitrarily decide that what he thinks it means comes from is not where it actually originates, but where it sits for a little while, and then that's exactly what he's going to say now, and then gets brought into the whole process. Now, he's chosen that arbitrary point because he doesn't like the idea of it coming from the testicles, i.e. that's the source. But we could always do now, whenever I hear things like this, and again, everybody has their own style, I go in my mind, what's a reductio of this? What could I bring to show this? And you could use something else, right? You go, okay, that's what the source. He's not accepting the source anymore, as in like it comes from that. He's choosing some arbitrary point along this process and saying, well, that's where it originates from. And then all you do is use a reductio, some other example where you know what the source is and you choose some other arbitrary point along the line, like light. Oh, so you're saying that the sun is not the source of light. So what's the source of light? The moon, because you've now arbitrarily decided that the photons that bounce off the moon, that's the source of light. It's like an arbitrary point. And that's what he's, in my mind, at least as I understand it, that's what he's doing here.
Yeah, but he's adding mistake to mistake. It's just piling on the mistakes that the Quran makes.
Into an area called, the name has gone out, the seminal vesicles.
Yes.
The seminal vesicles sit just above the bladder, so above your bladder, so probably just around your belly button area, slightly.
What the hell is he?
Below that, but inside.
Calm down.
And in this area is where the sperm is stored until it needs to be used. So then what happens? So then obviously you have.
That is factually incorrect. That would result in the internal sepsis, because this would. Come on. I mean, how can he claim to be a medical doctor and then he says that this is stored until it is being used? It's not. This is why you have a discharge, for example, at night. When this is full, it gets discharged. So there are lots of possibilities. I don't know. I'm getting angry with this guy.
Intercourse, and the sperm only makes up 2% of the final volume of what's ejaculated. 98% of it comes from the prostate gland, which sits just in the base near your behind, and it almost acts as a lubricant.
Okay, now suddenly he says this is...
take the sperm into the area that it needs to go to. So even this understanding that you have, so you're complaining about scientific statements and you're thinking that the sperm is ejaculated from the testicles, which is completely wrong, Rob. So I would say that you're not...
My understanding is that the sperm from the testicles...
By the way, I don't know if anybody notices, we are not addressing in any way the origin of any kind of fluid, whatever that may be, from the ribs of the woman. All he's doing is he's talking about some detail which nobody has claimed about the sperm and the man. What happened to the fluid of the woman and the ribs and the, I don't know, whatever area you want to call it? What is it?
Is possibly joined with another type of liquid that you've described. That's okay. a stretch. That's
No,
okay.
no,
at a
no,
stretch.
no.
But
You're not understanding.
Your understanding is wrong.
where I think where it falls down is to say it comes from a woman.
I'm going to
What
tell
is
you
that
that.
about?
Rob, I'm coming to that. I haven't even got there.
Just a second, Imran. Just listen.
Rob, do you have children, Rob?
Rob. Just listen.
Rob,
Yes,
you have
yeah, I
children.
do. Yeah.
You,
yeah.
this is what you
Yeah.
just said.
Blessing
This is
of
what
God,
you
that's a
just
miracle, Rob.
Abbas, 1 second, Rob.
But my wife certainly didn't have sperm coming out of her anyway.
Rob,
Not that in that description.
Rob, you just said, I understand. Just 1 second. You just said, I understand that the sperm's in the testicles and another fluid joins it in the testicles. That's what you said, right?
No,
that's how
not
you
what he
understand it.
I've kind of done a little bit of research, and I think there is two different types
not
of
what he said.
fluid that joins and is expelled.
Joins
But
where?
scientifically, it
No,
just
Rob,
doesn't
Rob,
apply
Rob,
to a woman.
Rob, we're underlining as we go. Joins where?
This Hamza guy, did you hear this? How many times now in the last 120 seconds did he say Rob?
Yeah.
He's like a
He
little
wants to control
like,
the narrative, right? And he wants to ask questions now so that Imran has breathing room. Again, what one does with this is you just ignore him. Say, okay, Imran, continue there. I'm skeptical of this, or you haven't got that right, or whatever the case is. I'm claiming that's a stretch. Just ignore it. That'll piss him off, and he might actually eject you out of there. But if you're going to answer his questions, you're just going on a tangent, and it's going to be completely and utterly unhelpful to you. But that's the whole point of this, right? This is not there for him to have like an honest, straightforward conversation with thing, especially because Hamza's got very short attention span and a temper. So he wants to get in and try and pin him down on something that's unrelated. Because ultimately what he's trying to do is undermine his credibility. If he can do that, then any critique, well, we don't have to worry about it, right? Same thing with James. You see, same thing with you. You guys are Islamophobes, so we don't have to deal with your critique. We've undermined you as characters, so whatever you're going to bring, we don't need to deal with because you guys automatically must be wrong because you're these sort of people, apparently.
Where?
As the doctor has described.
Where?
Possibly somewhere in the region of the lower, much lower backbone, possibly.
No.
But like I say, at a stretch, fine. You could stretch it. You could stretch it for a man, but for a woman, it's just not stretchable. You can't. It doesn't match up with science.
Rob, stop trying to eat all the cake. We're giving you piece by piece, okay? So now, you said, I understand. This is what you just said. I understand the sperm is joined by another liquid in the testicles. Now you've changed it, agreeing with the doctor. But you're not agreeing with the doctor because I don't know why you're trying to make it lower for some reason.
No, I don't agree with the woman description.
Let's continue with the man first. We're underlining as we go here, Rob. Okay. So where does this liquid mingle in the man?
It's
as the doctor has described.
Right.
Yeah,
so you're happy with that.
Somewhere below. I think it's at the front of the body, possibly. Just somewhere below the area of the spine.
Forget your DIY biology. Okay, doctor, where does the sperm join? Or join this other liquid, or this other liquid join it?
Okay, let me just explain. I don't know if you've ever had the sperm is stored not in the testicles. It's stored in somewhere called the carpa, in the seminal vesicles, which sit around near the top of the bladder. Okay, to the sides and the top of the bladder. Okay, so that's where the sperm is stored. Okay. Now, at the moment of ejaculation, what happens is that these are squeezed, and there's other glands that are along the tube that goes to eventually comes out at the end of the penis. That things like the Cowper glands that add mucus, but essentially goes to the prostate, and the prostate then releases the extra fluid.
Does everybody realize he's had time now to look it up? Because all the things he didn't know before, he's just been reading, and you could see that he's on the screen reading up. Now he's suddenly bringing this in, but it's still irrelevant. It's not the question.
That forms the semen, so the sperm becomes the semen as it's coming out. Now, the prostate, if you ever need to go and have yourself examined for a prostate exam, which is not recommended, the way it's examined.
And by the way, if you go and buy shoes, you might want to have a look at your shoe size. And there are ways of determining this because nowadays they have computers, but they need electricity. And if you need electricity, then you have to go to Tesla because he was the one who came up with the...
it's all just waffle at the moment. Nothing relevant to the actual point. He keeps asking the same question. What we're getting here is waffle to try and make Imran sound like an authority after, as you say, he's read something up there, and to try and undermine Rob, but not to actually answer this and say, hey, here's why my interpretation is correct from the Arabic. And I reject Al-Jalalain because he didn't know what he was talking about. His understanding's wrong. But I, Imran, the main guy here, because I'm a doctor, that somehow entitles me to interpret the Quran in the way I see fit. And I'm gonna ramble on here and give you all of this unrelated stuff here because that'll add to my credibility. It won't answer your question, but it'll certainly add to my credibility in the eyes of my gullible followers. But Stops and I, this is just waffle to us, and we're waiting for something of substance at the moment. We're not hearing it in relation to what Rob actually asked about. We've got to remind ourselves what he asked about here, because all of this waffle just gets the brain to forget what the original point was.
And the thing is, what he's asking us to do...
What is the liquid and where does this come from in a woman?
Yeah. And what he's trying to do, and he's asking us to do, is to simply ignore 1,000 years of Islamic scholarship. He knows better than all the people that have studied ancient Arabic, which none of these people have. And
but wait,
maybe
stop.
this Nazam, I don't know.
Yeah, but he's got it because he's cherry-picked one small part of Lane's lexicon and he selected somebody else who claims that that's what it should mean. Well, you put those two things together from these two cherry-picked sources that don't have much credibility in the Muslim world, and suddenly you get to the conclusion that he's always wanted to. I mean, don't you understand? That's just the end of the story, right? That's just the way one reasons and comes to a substantive, irrefutable conclusion. Cherry-picking works. I mean, come on.
And none of the others correct him, stop him, or
they are more ignorant than
we
he
need
is.
to do
How on
more
earth
research.
how could they respond to him if they are 10 times more ignorant than he is?
Is you have a finger, unfortunately, inserted into your backside, because that's the way you feel for the prostate gland. Now, for those of you,
maybe
those
that's
of you don't know,
speciality.
now you know. So the idea that this is somewhere sort of very superficial, or this is a strange thing, but that's.
Oh, and by the way, he's also wrong, because today you don't need to do this anymore.
Talking about the man, but when we're coming, you wanted to know about the woman, right?
We'll underline that part. So you agree with that, Rob?
That's right. Yeah. I'm stretching it. At a stretch, I would agree with the doctor for the man, but the woman is still a complete mystery.
Okay, Rob, this is a stretch. He's just give you a doctor's description, explaining exactly. It's not an opinion. It's not based on his whims and desires. It's not whether you agree or not.
Pieces of paper and find the doctor's description. You'd have absolutely no clue. So he's giving you a doctor's description because he's told you he's a doctor, and you just gullibly believe everything he says because he's a doctor.
And look,
So
Imran is
you're
looking
not in a
again.
position to actually make any authoritative statement here. Just say, hey, I believe it completely on faith because I'm appealing to an authority. I wouldn't know whether the authority is correct or not, but I'm just going to appeal to him in every circumstance because I believe him. He's on my side of the fence and because I think he's an authority.
Yeah, and if this is a medical doctor, he should be ashamed of himself representing.
And unfortunately, we of course have one gullible person in the audience who's even more gullible because he thinks Hamza's got something important to say. Oh dear, it's a shame. I feel sad for some people, right? I think Hamza's a simpleton and can't follow a conversation. But then unfortunately,
Rob, I think this is actually satire, this guy.
No, I think he actually believes he can't speak English, but that's fine. It's not his first language. I'm not going to.
No, he's pretending. No. There are, on occasions, I've seen comments which are actually quite on target, on point. I am very suspicious.
He's entirely gullible and completely believes anything that any Muslim says when they open their mouth.
Okay.
It is what it is. So you can't say, at a stretch, I'll accept the doctor's diagnosis. You say, fair enough, he's a doctor, he's qualified, he would know where these glands are. I bow to his superior knowledge on this issue. Be sincere, be genuine.
No, I won't be.
Hamza,
in biology, right?
Hamza, I've given credit to the doctor's description of a man.
Look at this guy. He's like a little chihuahua. Whoa. He cannot get himself to listen. He has to talk. He cannot control himself. Like a little dog yapping at the heels of something.
I'm not going to give credit regarding the description of the woman.
We don't need your credit, mate, and we don't need your validation. All we've done so far is this: demonstrated your understanding of sperm in the man is wrong, and the doctor's corrected you and put you in the right position. Now we can move on. It's not your whether you accept it or you'll take it as a threat. You don't know.
No, I don't know. In case somebody did not get this, please, one of the Muslims who are listening to this, tell Hamza that he has misrepresented Rob MTT, and the misrepresentation has not even been addressed, because Imran is talking about something completely different, and here he's reading up on the next thing that he's going to present us with, I'm sure, And none of this has anything to do with the issue that we have that the Quran is wrong. And none of this is being addressed. You're talking about all sorts of things, but not the issue in the Quran.
Can you also see, Stops, and it's worth mentioning again because we're further in here, how this propaganda type channel works, right? Here what happens, it's like, it's like a wrestling match. You got one guy on one side and they'll tap out with each other on the other side. So you get somebody else in, like you say, where he can go and read something else up, or somebody else can do something. And Hamza's the loudmouth who just shouts a lot and says nothing of consequence, right? But it takes up time, takes people's attention away, and allows the other guy to take a breather, get his concentration back, and then hop back into the ring, right? And then they think that they've had a good conversation. Take one of these guys, or 2-on-2, and we go and do this somewhere on a neutral channel, and I think they would be floating home. But here in the safe space, 4 of them in their own way of doing this against one person, where they can tag team in and out and then pat themselves on the back. And then, by the way, their gullible audience will think these guys are amazing, right?
There's only 5 of them.
Part for me, really.
But Rob, you or I, we could take on. There's only 5 of them. There's no problem. You just need to stay focused, and you just need to follow along what they're doing. No big deal.
Just move on. Right, continue.
Not regarding the woman. The description
Okay,
of
we're
the
not
woman.
talking about the woman right now, are we? We're talking about the man, aren't we?
Well, the woman was included in the point. So,
we're talking about the man right now, aren't we? The sperm.
well, the woman is included in the point.
We're talking about the man right now, though, aren't we?
Why are you talking about the man in the first place? That was not the question, you oaf.
So, Rob, you seem to be fighting sort of basic biology, and I think that's a problem that we're having here.
Well, I don't think the description of the woman matches any scientific basis.
Rob, have I mentioned the woman yet?
Why haven't you mentioned the woman is the question.
Well, he has, because he's been talking about the pelvic muscle, the cradle of bones, which is absolute bullshit. So he has been talking about it, but when he realized that he can't get anywhere, he quickly veered away from it and started talking about sperm. And then he addressed something that Hamza misrepresented, and we haven't gone 1 inch further towards the solution, because the question was always, what kind of a liquid, what kind of a fluid comes from what type of bones? And that's it. And you haven't addressed that question at all.
Rob, have I mentioned the woman yet?
Well, I'm waiting.
Yeah. It's really interesting that you seem to be objecting that I haven't spoken about the woman yet, when I haven't spoken about the woman yet. I'm talking about the man, because even that needed explaining. Because you thought at one stage that the semen came from the testicles when you ejaculate, and that's
the source.
Well, I'm still wondering what this liquid is that's coming from a woman's body that it's describing.
Right, Rob. Because I'm not going to make this easy on Rob. I'm not making it easy at all. Okay, so you now accept the man's side. Now you're saying when it talks about the woman's side, you're saying that doesn't exist. Is that what you're saying, Rob?
Oh,
it's still, at this point, it's a mystery to me.
Right, well, explain to me what you know about women's biology and fluids and stuff.
Straw man king. Whenever he summarizes something, you can be guaranteed that he's going to get it utterly wrong. So whenever he says, "Are you saying this?" you can immediately answer it. After he said the words, "Are you saying this?" you can immediately say no, because you're 99 out of 100 times guaranteed that he's going to misrepresent you. That's
the same way when they make an analogy, you can say that flawed analogy. It's always the case.
Yeah.
I've got a basic knowledge. I'm not saying that I'm
on ejaculation, what happens?
Oh, fuck.
Well, the doctor's already outlined that.
No. When the man ejaculates into the woman, what happens?
The 2 fluids meet
Which 2
in
fluids?
the man's body. The sperm and the there's a word for it, but I can't remember. The doctor would know the word.
Okay, the semen enters the woman.
For this other fluid, I think they mix, and then they.
Look what Hamza is doing. He hasn't got a clue because Rob is now repeating something that is actually sort of correct, and Hamza is immediately misrepresenting him, saying, "You're talking about the woman." No, he said within the man there is a mix between sperm and semen, and Hamza is immediately saying, "You're talking about the woman." No, he is not. Listen to what he is saying.
They're rejected.
Right.
Okay.
So
apart. Okay. So Hamza, you're a married man. Okay. So apart from the lubrication of your wife,
in that, I'm talking about you.
With all due respect,
Here's what you're saying. You're saying the Quran.
What on earth?
it's just worth repeating, probably for the last time, hopefully. This is why you don't respond to Hamza. If you're having a conversation with Imran or Abbas or somebody else, it's like you hear noise. I know it's difficult. Obviously, it's easy to say when we're watching here. I acknowledge that. But we've got to teach ourselves, if we were to do this, unless you're speaking to him directly, just ignore him, because now you can see where this goes. It goes down a rabbit hole. It goes off on a red herring territory, nothing to do with what his original point is. And every time he asks about his original point, they all get frustrated, as if that is an adequate response to the question that he asked in the very beginning of this.
But this is what they wanted. We are far, far, far away from the Quran. Now they're questioning him. This is the silly thing that they're always trying to do. They're trying to ask, they are the ones who are asking questions. They are in control. And they're asking him what happens during ejaculation.
Correct.
Which has nothing to do with the question being asked about the Quran.
Liquid that's coming out of the female.
Right. So you're saying there's no
apart from lubrication purposes. I don't want to get too deep into it, but
okay. So Rob, what happens when the semen ejaculates into the woman in the reproduction? What happens?
How do you have to go there? It's not necessary.
Oh, go on.
It's not necessary.
Well,
an expert on women's biology.
Well, apart from proceeding up into the womb, it's certainly not meeting with her sperm. So that's all I can say on that.
Where'd you get that from?
Well, we're trying to establish what this liquid is that's coming out of a woman.
Where's the meeting with her sperm from? The hell's that?
Well, the liquid that's proceeding out of the woman that it mentions in the tafsir.
You're muted, Imran.
So, Rob, my friend, you're sort of losing credibility here. So let me try and explain it to you.
No.
But if you can sort of just allow me to do that, because you're sort of struggling, you're fighting with the explanation. I understand why, because it's not going the way you would like it to go, and that's the problem, you see.
Well,
so let me
The irony of that statement.
But they love doing that. This is also part of the tactic, to go and make the person uncomfortable psychologically. If you have ever seen cop movies, you will see that they do this. I see your eyes are watery and bloodshot, so you must have been drinking. You're not, and your speech is slurred. No, it's not. He is insinuating this so that, just to give himself a reason to go further, even though this is not the case. Why are you uncomfortable? Why are you trembling? Why are you so nervous? Why are you evading? Why? He's not. It's just making up these things to make you feel uncomfortable just psychologically. That's all he's doing. Yeah, I can see that you're struggling. He is not struggling. He is asking the same question over and over, and you are nowhere near asking. We've been here now for, 40 minutes. You haven't answered anything yet. And the thing is that he is not nervous. You are, because you're struggling. You don't have an answer. And then you're telling this guy why you're struggling with this? No, he's not.
Let me just, I'm going to demystify you in 1 second. Let me just demystify you in 1 second. Okay, so I've explained to you about the fluid from the man, and I've explained to you about the position of this, which is not where you thought it was coming from. So let's continue from there, shall we? So let me just share it. I'm going to do my favorite thing today. I'm going to share a screen. So let me share a screen with you, Rob. Have a look at the screen, yeah? So this is the Muhammad Assad translation. Yeah. This is the Muhammad Assad translation, yeah? It says, talk about verse 86.
Choose my own.
The funny thing is, he's now choosing a translation.
Go on, Stops.
So he's now choosing a translation, which he says you're not allowed to do. You have to go and look at the Arabic. And now he's saying, well, hang on, I found a translation now because, Hamza has bought me time. So I found a translation which actually sort of fortifies my point, or what you like, Steelman's my point. And therefore, this is what I'm going to use. That's what I'm going to choose.
I'm going to cherry pick a version of the English translation that matches exactly the conclusion that I was working backwards to. So I'm going to find something that matches what I want to get to, and I'll disregard anything else that says something different, because that way I can confirm my conclusion by working back from my conclusion and finding anything that only matches what I want to do, the exact opposite of critical thinking.
Now, the funny thing is, if you look at this translation, it's not a translation. Look at 86.6. He has been created out of a seminal fluid. Now, the funny thing is, the word used there is ma, which is water. So if you go and sit in a cafe in Cairo and you ask for a glass of ma, you are not going to get a glass of seminal fluid. You're going to get a glass of water. So ma is water. It's not seminal fluid. The next thing is, it says issuing from between the loins. It doesn't mention the loins. It mentions the spine. And this can be in the neck of man. It doesn't say that. And the pelvic arch. it doesn't say pelvic arch, and it doesn't say of woman. So this guy is totally screwing it up.
Yeah, he's got his own interpretation. Here's the corpus. This is the direct word for word. Here it is. Ma or main, it looks like there, but ma, a water.
Ma'in.
Right?
No, this is ma'in.
Main, a water, right? He is created from a water ejected. And if you go to the next one, number 7, from between the backbone and the ribs. That's the direct word for word translation. What are we getting here, though? His selected version with this guy that's saying what he wants to say that matches our modern understanding. And so Imran is going to select that as if that's an authoritative source. And it's the one that we must accept over everything else. You just got to know the game that's being played here. Once you know the game, it's like opening moves in chess. Once you know the opening moves and you know the weak moves, and they do the same weak moves every time, you don't even have to think about it, right? You can immediately spot it and you can go in for the checkmate.
7. It talks about this fluid issuing from between the loins.
This fluid. Notice how he is not being specific here. Suddenly he gets vague because he knows it's not seminal fluid. He knows exactly that he's lying.
Of the man and the pelvic arch of the woman. So I specified this word tara'ib as something specific to the woman. Now, if you look at...
No. Of woman is not there. This is an addition.
The note that he makes, this is what he said.
The plural noun rendered by me, okay, this is his personal opinion, as pelvic arch, has also the meaning of ribs. No, pelvic arch and ribs.
No, it can't mean the same thing. Because if that's the route you're going to take, then you've just destroyed Arabic. If Arabic can mean all these different things, then Arabic doesn't have a clear meaning. And if that's the route you want to take, good luck. You just sink yourself and the Quran with that. So we can immediately, a priori now, dismiss this guy as an authoritative source in any way.
And it still does not get us anywhere nearer to the explanation what this fluid is that comes from the pelvic arch. Because in the pelvic arch, you don't have any liquid that is capable of creating a human being. And this is what, after all, the Quran is telling us.
And this just confirms what I was saying from the Lane's lexicon. The plural noun tara'ib...
No, this does not confirm what you've just said. This is another instance of you quote mining somebody where you're taking one small section out of Elaine's lexicon, and now you're taking somebody who's latched onto this and is using this the same way as you are doing, and you are saying, oh, how convenient. I can go and I can use that specific explanation when it is not an explanation, and it still doesn't tell us where the liquid is coming from and what it actually is.
Rendered by me as pelvic arch also has the meaning of ribs or arch of bones. According to most authorities who have specialized in the etymology of rare Quranic expressions, this term relates specifically to female anatomy. Okay? So this is evidence for you. Another piece of evidence for you on top of...
Stop it there. It's not evidence. All it says is you can have this. It also has the meaning of ribs or arch of bones. So it has 3 different meanings, apparently. You are going to cherry pick pelvic arch and then say that this refers specifically to female anatomy. We've just got to watch what's going on here, right? It's like we're repeating ourselves. I know he's cherry picking one word out of a cherry picked interpretation, and the cherry picked explanation of that cherry picked interpretation, and then a cherry picked word out of that. So we can see how much cherry pick. I mean, he would be like the best picker of cherries out there on this planet at this stage.
Yeah, and I don't know what he's actually trying to show here.
Everything else that's explained. That this word tara'ib that you're saying is ribs is something that's specific to the female anatomy, i.e. it's not ribs as you understand it, and we're referring to arch of bones. Now the question you're asking, and let's sort of get back to the question, is in the formation of a human being, what liquid is it that could be coming from the woman? What can this possibly be? And we're not talking about the lubrication, because that doesn't help.
Correct.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about. So that your problem here is Rob, is that you don't know enough about the female anatomy or any anatomy to be able to even have an opinion on the subject.
The Quran, apparently.
But you're insisting that there is a scientific error on the science you don't understand. So the question I'm asking you is in conception, i.e. when that happens, what happens? You get the sperm and then you get the egg, right? When the egg is released from the woman, how does that happen? How does that happen, Frank? Sorry, I keep calling you Frank, but Rob, how does that happen?
Is it right? Call it Frank.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know how that happened?
Well, you're talking about.
Another tactic.
Yeah.
You make a claim and ask the guy, how's that possible?
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
asking the other person to verify your own claim. You have to verify it. I mean, Rob can just say, listen, I don't know, you just made a claim. Explain it. You go and tell me, where is the liquid coming from? How does it work?
The egg, specifically,
Yeah.
which travels
How?
from the fallopian tubes.
How is it?
Okay, I think what he's going to say is because the whole thing is just that the follicle bursts open, the ovum is released. Now, this does not happen during ejaculation. It has nothing to do with it. What it is just something that is being released, and there is a tiny amount of liquid in the follicle. Now, I don't want to go. I've got a couple of pages set up, scientific pages going and demonstrating or showing and describing bit by bit how this actually works, but it's not really worth it, really. I mean, this is so, I didn't know this was really going to be so basic. I thought this was, there's a medical doctor there, so we have to be more specific. No, we don't. This fool does not know what he's talking about. He's just making claims, doesn't understand what it is, and then just says, well, you go and tell me why it's wrong. That's crazy.
I assume it travels somehow pushed out from her body,
How? This
but
problem,
that,
sorry, Rob, this is the problem, Rob.
and
So-
just one thing, I'm pretty sure I'm not sure if it's the Tafsir Jalalain or it's possibly Ibn Kathir, possibly.
Talk
I'm
about the
not
science,
sure.
mate. Talk about the science, mate.
I'm sure it mentions breastbone.
Talk about
Sure, it
science,
mentions
mate.
breastbone.
Why-
Rob, can I just say one thing?
Without having it in front of me, I'm pretty sure it mentions breastbone.
Rob, can I just say one?
Al-Jalalain says breastbones, of course.
What you
He's
need to
from
do,
between the loins
Rob,
of a man and the breastbones of a woman, 86.7. That's what Al-Jalalain says.
now, Rob MTT, what you need to do is turn it around. Instead of you making the claims once again, go and ask them, is it possible that it is not saying that? Is it possible that it is saying that? These are the kind of questions that you need to ask. Don't go and tell them this is what Al-Jalalain says. Ask them, does Al-Jalalain say the X? Why would he say that? They have to come up with the explanation. And then if they say, well, yeah, but he's wrong, today we know different. Okay, why is that? Is it possible that he had a wrong understanding and that today Allah made it clear for for the two brothers and not for us today? How does that work? You need to ask the questions. Don't get pushed into a corner and you go and answer their kind of questions. That's not the way that it works. It's actually quite easy to take that stance and not to get caught in that corner.
One thing quickly. Hamza, can I just say one thing? Rob, I'm really happy that you're not my doctor.
What a ridiculously stupid
Yeah, Abbas is really, I mean, he's
Thank you
such
for
a
that
simpleton. It's amazing. Yeah.
name, cretinous statement. That's really added to the conversation. Abbas, it's best if you mute and don't actually say anything at all here.
The only thing that he's good at is asking Christians what is the Trinity. That's the only thing he can ask. He's really silly.
Rob,
Abbas, I've never claimed to be a doctor. But I do
why
know.
don't you listen to one then, Rob? Why don't you listen to one?
I do know that sperm does not come from a
Why
woman.
don't you listen to one then, Rob?
Guys, give me 1 second, please. Give me 1 second. So Rob, neither the Quran nor anyone else has said that sperm comes from the woman. You just keep repeating this thing as if you think this is what it says. Now, the problem here is that it's disingenuous. I've told you specifically what the Quran is saying. I've talked about the Arabic words.
No, you have not. And you still, after 45 minutes, you have not answered the number one question, what fluid is coming from the woman? You still have not answered the question. You've been tap dancing around now for 45 minutes and you still have not been able to answer a simple question, and you called yourself a medical doctor.
I've referred to sulb and I've referred to tara'ib. I've explained to you where the sperm is coming from, how semen is made, really specifically for you. And in a way, obviously, you didn't understand that before, now you do. Now we're talking about the female anatomy. We're talking about a fluid, yeah? Ma'in dafiq, a fluid, not sperm. It doesn't say sperm anywhere. In that whole scenario, it doesn't say it. Ma'in dafiq, yeah? Now you have a problem here that you need it to be sperm from a woman, but that's not what it's saying. Now, if you want to say, look, I don't want to listen to you, I just want to use this phraseology over and over again, and I'm just going to say this to Muslims who don't understand it, then that's fine, Rob. Rob. Sorry, not Frank. Now, but the problem here is that that's not what's being referred to. We have access to the language. We have access to explanations of the language. We've specifically told you that that if you look at the word tara'ib, which is when it's talking about the woman, it's specifically talking about something which relates specifically to the female anatomy. Now you're talking about you want this fluid to be sperm in the woman, but that's not what it's saying.
Unbelievable.
Now, the thing here is this, and I want to just say, so where's that message gone? This is the thing that you need to do. The liquid, we've got to find out about the liquid. I agree with you, Rob. So let me tell you what the liquid is, so that then that will put this, hopefully, this to no pun intended, but put this thing to bed, right? So this is the understanding. So when you, as the woman goes through her monthly cycle, she develops follicles on her ovaries. Okay, follicles are if you imagine like little bubbles, and they contain the genetic material. Plus, it's a ball with something within it. I'll come to that because you know what? It's a fluid. And what happens?
What? Are you fucking mad? How can you do that? No, come on. This is the worst I have ever heard from anybody who calls himself a doctor.
Just explain it for the viewers, Stops.
The human cell contains some amount of liquid, which is a watery liquid, yes. But the rest of the cell is so bloody complex. Where do you think the 23 chromosomes are if this is only liquid? How can you say this is liquid? How can you sell the ball inside there is a liquid? Nah, come on.
So that follicles, that when it's the time of the month, usually sort of middle of the cycle, this will rupture, it bursts. And when it bursts, it's taken into the fallopian tube, and the fallopian tube has these sort of little fingers, almost like that pull the liquid along and the material with it along.
Yes.
Now that liquid is called follicular fluid.
Yes.
It's slightly yellow in color, and this is what propels this egg along the fallopian tubes.
Okay, he's just destroyed his own argument because he has just said they're actually hairs, okay, and they are moving. And while moving, they are stroking the egg and bringing it along the fallopian tube. Okay. Now, compare that to what the Quran says. Gushing forth. There is no gushing forth of any liquid, not the same way as the male during ejaculation does anyway. There is none of that in the woman. So the whole body is filled with liquids, absolutely. But it's not something that is a specific liquid that is being gushing forth, which is then the liquid. We're talking about the liquid. We're not talking about the ovum. We're talking about the liquid that is being used to form a human being. And that is not the case. We have the gonad, and then this produces the ovum and the sperm. But you can't go and say the liquid is what creates a human being. So there are two mistakes here. So from a scientific, from a biological point of view, Imran has just shot himself in the foot so bad, it's embarrassing. This is the worst I have ever heard, really. Oh.
I think now, what do we have? What do we have here now? We have the sperm being propelled by the liquid from the seminal vesicles with the prostatic liquid out.
No, he has just contradicted himself.
Yeah, he was saying that it's the hairs that are propelling it. But
no, the man. He just said this is where the sperm is being stored. And now he says this is where the semen comes from. It doesn't. He has just contradicted himself. He's totally out of his depth here. He really doesn't know. Let me just come back. Let me hear again what he just says. We are on 4750. Listen to what he says.
Held by the liquid from the seminal vesicles with the prostatic liquid out.
Because now he's gone back to talking about the man again.
Yeah, but what he says about the man is wrong. Listen to what he says.
That liquid is called follicular fluid. It's slightly yellow in color, and this is what propels this egg along the fallopian tubes to the womb. Now, what do we have? What do we have here now? We have the sperm being propelled by the liquid from the seminal vesicles.
He's saying that the sperm is being propelled by the liquid from the seminal vesicles. It's not. He just explained quite rightly that the sperm is being held in the vesicular vehicles and the liquid, the semen, being created in the prostate gland is then being propelled through there. And then they mix there. But not the other way around.
With the prostatic liquid out, we have the genetic material over the egg being propelled by the follicle.
Ah, so suddenly he's talking about the gametes. Where does the Quran talk about that? It doesn't. We're talking about liquid, not the gametes. And suddenly he's bringing in the sex cells, which are not mentioned in the Quran at all, which are not being mentioned by Jalalain, and it is not a fluid. So suddenly he's pretending that somehow there is a fluid involved somewhere, because somewhere in the human being there is some fluid, and therefore everything is correct. No, it is not. Man is not created from a fluid. The fluid is used as a transportation mechanism, nothing else.
Fluid through the fallopian tubes to the womb. Oh, you know what? We got two liquids propelling the genetic material that formed the human being.
It's not gushing forth either. How can anybody who has been to university, like, okay, I can understand Hamza and Abbas not understanding this, but come on, Imran has been to varsity, I hope. How can you do that?
Being from a man and from a woman.
Allahu Akbar.
Now that
Allahu
is
Akbar,
scientific.
Allah,
The accuracy
Subhanallah, yeah.
from 1,400 years ago from a guy who lived in the desert, peace be upon him, who could not read or write,
This is the same argument that you get all the time.
That's
They
the part
say
that I
that
want-
Allah created it, but Muhammad is the one who actually was illiterate, and how can a man have known this? Well, he didn't. He was parroting according to the standard narration of...
right? And if he had copied the information available to him at the time, would have got it wrong.
See, that's the
So
conclusion.
are you saying
There. I think that's as far as we need to go. It's getting late here
Yeah,
anyway.
I think
But,
it's getting
and we've got into a bit of depth there. But I think that's as far as I wanted to get to. Right? As long as there's something, if there's one like molecule of liquid in the female, because that was the original thing, right? His claim is that it comes along and, takes the egg along, but actually he was saying that it went along with these little hairs that push it along. If there's one molecule of liquid, then there's all this liquid that's coming from a female. And look, we have this liquid and this other liquid. One liquid's taking the semen along, the other liquid's taking the egg along, and mashallah, there we go, and it matches the Quran. This is textbook example of post hoc reasoning. I've got this conclusion. I will cherry pick whatever I can from whatever source I can possibly find that will get me to the conclusion I want to get to. And other guys there that are so hypnotized and gullible will all say, mashallah, this is just amazing. At no point would they stop and go, hang on a moment, let's see how accurate this is. Why did you choose that scenario? Why did you not choose this? Why are you choosing these little bits? This is just complete. This goes right past them, right? And it's just a case of we've now got to it. Now, at the end of this, right, they will say,
just wait a second. Look what happens now.
that is the monthly time when the egg comes out?
Rob, you know what, Rob?
No.
I think you at this stage, Rob, if you had any genuine bone in your body about this subject, Rob, you would have said, you know what, lads? You would have said, me in 2021 got it all wrong, but this man in the desert in the 7th century who was illiterate and was only known for herding goats and then later in his life as a businessman, as a trader, got it right. Allahu Akbar. That's all I can say.
All right, Rob.
Well, I'm sure the tafsir says
Lovely speaking to you, Rob.
neck bone,
Interesting.
breastbone.
Rob,
I'm sure the tafsir.
that's exactly what the doctor said. That's it. Alas.
All right, let's bring it to a close there, right? The stops has been quite technical. It might not be easy to follow along. We didn't have diagrams, etc. I think for me, the closing thing is that, like I say, that we've had this cherry-picked interpretations of what he wanted to get to, and you could hear the other guys all say, mashallah. And when I heard this, right, I knew that I'm watching people that are so utterly devoted, so hypnotically following along here, that at no point would they ask a single question that you and I, the stops, have answered, and they will just believe whatever comes out of Imran's mouth, or Sabua's mouth or anybody else. As long as they see them as an expert, they're never going to go research this themselves, because as long as it seems to confirm what they already believe, it must be correct. He's been refuted, and off he gets kicked off the panel, because this doctor has just given this, mashallah, amazing explanation for this that doesn't in fact match the Quran, but because it sounds like it does to their gullible ears, they will take it as the case. And I just wanted to put it out there for everybody else. I think I'll leave it at that. Stops. You have the last word.
No, I just want to show this. I mean, this is what we're talking about. Okay, so I don't know if you know these terms. Okay, this is a gonad. Okay, so what happens is that there are follicles here, and then what happens is that the gamete, the sex cell, actually gets transported into here towards the womb, towards the uterus, and then this is a liquid, and this is filled with these little hairs, and that's it. So there's no gushing fluid. There's nothing. The fallopian tube is just filled with liquid, as is most of the abdominal cavity. So there's nothing unusual here for us today. But the people at the time had no clue what they're looking at. And this is why we have the description the way it is. They took what the ancient Greeks came up with, and this idea that there's a homunculus and you have this gushing fluid, which obviously they associated the semen with pregnancy. But they didn't know the mechanism. They didn't know what was happening. So this is why we get what we get in the Quran, which we know today is absolutely, totally wrong. It is not accurate in any kind of scientific way, no matter what you're going to do with it. It is wrong. And there's nothing that you can do about it. And I am very, very disappointed that a doctor will be so dishonest and so disingenuous that he will go and risk his reputation. I mean, if any of his colleagues, and if he works in a hospital or something, and if anybody sees this, he's going to be disbarred. I mean, you can't have a doctor that talks bullshit like this. So anyway, what we have shown is that everything that he has claimed is wrong. We have shown that it is not a rare word. We have shown where it comes from. We have shown the various translations. We have shown how this comes, where and how. So there is nothing that he has claimed that has withstood the test of any kind of level of scrutiny.
Yeah, and on that note, at no point did he demonstrate that it didn't come from the backbone anyway. I think we've said enough on this. Hopefully this has been educational, perhaps a little bit entertaining. I think the moral of the story is these panels are, not really worth your time unless you could be on a neutral panel, because you'll have this sort of stuff going on. All we have to do is ask for the evidence, right? And when he produced, quote unquote, the evidence, it was cherry picked, and nobody should accept that. So on that note, again, Stops, thank you so much for bringing your information. Thank you to all the viewers for watching. And I'm sure we'll be back again with another review of another stream, or at least part of a stream at some point when it piques our interest. If you guys find anything that you think is of value that you might want to hear us review, please ping me in the Discord server. I'll just put the banner to go across the screen here. Let me just give you the link as well.
I haven't been there for a while.
And not that one, this one here. There we go. So that's the one you can use. Here's the link. Join that server and ping us a link and say, hey guys, I'd love you to review X, Y, and Z. Or pick me up on Twitter. It's Speakers Corner UK, or I think it's Stop Spamming on Twitter.
Stop one spamming.
Sometimes I get Twitter messages asking me to review certain things, so that's another way to do it. On that note, thank you to Stops, thank you to all of your viewers, and we'll be back again next time. Good night to you.